Hey guys, welcome back to my channel, and today I'm going to be talking about The Bear and the Nightingale. I said I was going to do a rant review on this. I don't know how much I'll rant because I'm just tired. But this one it's not it for me, okay? So I'm going to just go over like the strong points of my overall thoughts, like what I liked, what I didn't like, and then I will go into a full spoiler review and why it failed at the end miserably. So this is a well-written, in that it has a very good atmosphere. If you are looking for, as you can tell from the cover, if you're looking for something wintry, like that cold, atmospheric, winter, forests, all of that, it's very well written that way. It puts you in the Russian woods, which is where this is set, and it has very strong Russian folklore vibes, which is what it is. And that part of it is good. It has that part, it really comes alive in that way. Like I can definitely picture everything that's happening in this Russian village. And even when they go outside of that, the other places are, they're well represented, if that makes sense, or they're well written. So that part I will say is the author's strong point. This is definitely like a winter book, and that part is well done. I don't have a problem necessarily with the author's writing style. I have a problem with her characterizations. These are not deep characters. If I was to, I think it's just a bummer because it's just not it for me as far as characterization. There is so much more that she could have done with these characters, and there's a major change that needed to be made in my mind to the main character to really make this story work. You have a family. The mother dies during childbirth. This is the beginning of the story, just like the very beginning. And kind of going forward, the father is looking to get a new wife, and then that leads to a lot of problems because the daughter that was born, the last child when the mother died, is special, we're led to believe. The mother is very insistent that she needs to have this child. So this little girl is supposed to be very special and important to the plot. However, then we spend a lot of time with the dad and the brothers going off to now I won't even remember, Moscow, I believe. Is it Moscow? Maybe Moscow. I don't remember, somewhere in Russia. I'm not good with names. And obviously I will not be good at pronouncing the Russian names, so forgive me. I probably won't even try. But I will just say the person, who they are in the story, because I will butcher these names, and that's just the way it is. So the guys, the father and the brothers go, and because of like politics and court scheming, even though he's the dad is a very kind of well-off person and respected, he ends up with a wife that's not the best. So I won't get too much into this. Like, this obviously affects the rest of the story. It affects the girl, and then she kind of takes over as the main character about halfway through, I feel like. The other character that is, the other main character of Winter, this winter demon, or the embodiment, the spirit, the whatever he's supposed to be of winter, is not really in it. He comes in at the end. He's kind of makes little appearances, but he's definitely a minor character to the story. I assume he will be more and more in the next couple books, which I will not be reading. So this is a 2.5 star read for me. If they would have changed something in this story, I would have given this 4 stars. But it broke down a lot at the end. So we have, our main characters are going to be, I believe her name is pronounced Vasha. So I'll try and remember to say her name, but the main girl is Vasha, I think. And she is the daughter that the mother insists on having. The mother then dies. The dad has to go get a stepmother. And Vasha is special. And she can see things that other people can't see. So she sees all the little, these are, I imagine, more well-known if you know Russian folklore, but there's spirits and little house demons and helpers. And that's not, it's described as they're the lowercase g gods of the like house. Like, so there's like the little spirit that like lives in the fireplace and different, and there's the water spirit by the lake and so like that. She can see all this, she communicates with them and, you know, becomes friends. So the stepmother, when we first see her, and the stepmother is going to be pivotal to this story, she is a mess. She is not grown up in the woods. She's not grown up with the tales about, you know, the house lowercase g gods. She does not understand what she's seen. She can also see these creatures, and she is terrified. She's grown up Catholic, I believe, a very like, I don't know if that's like, she's grown up Catholic, I believe. I don't know if they get too much into like the type of Catholicism or what, but it wouldn't really matter to the story. She's basically a very devout Catholic, and she is horrified because she can see what she believes are demons. She has always seen them. She doesn't even hardly bathe. She is so afraid. She is so messed up mentally. And this is the stepmother that gets sent with the dad back to take care of the little girl and the rest of there's other kids and stuff, but mainly for her. And she is at first kind of presented as a sympathetic figure, which is what you would think, since she is honestly believing that she has seen demons. She is a devout Catholic. She feels the only place that she doesn't see them is in the church. She wants to be a nun. But because of her place as she's related to the king somehow, I don't remember. She gets sent in a political marriage to, you know, be this guy's wife. She does not want to get married. It's implied, there's nothing graphic, but obviously like she does not want to be intimate with this guy, but she has no choice. Her whole life is not her own. She makes to make none of her own decisions. And it's really sad. I will say I felt bad for her. But later on the story is not going to view her in a sympathetic light, and we'll talk about that. So then they go back. Basha's growing up. The stepmother doesn't care for her. She has her own daughter who she loves, but she realizes that Basha can see these spirits, and she believes that Basha is communicating with them, which she is. And she sees this as her being used by demonic forces, which is what she would believe because she is a Catholic. So a priest, or I think it's a priest, comes to town, and he has kind of been gaining influence. So he gets ousted to this small, village on the outskirts in the forest to be, like, go over there. We don't want you influencing the court or getting too much backing of the people behind you. I don't remember his name. He is, if I was to say his characterization, he is Frollo, I think, from The Hunchback of Notre Dame. That is this guy. He is the the bad, priest, person who, and I don't even know that Frollo is a priest, but you know what I mean. He's that type of character. He's very much sinister, already feeling, even though he hasn't done anything wrong, he feeds the people all this fear, and so you have to throw away all the old traditions. You have to follow the new way, which is the Catholic priest. And he is not, from the beginning, you're like, oh no, this guy's super sketch. And he creates icons, he paints them, carves them, paints them, and that's why he's kind of got this influence amongst the people, because he can make these beautiful icons, and icons are very important to Catholicism. I will say, if you are Catholic, this is going to take a very dim view of that religion, so it may be offensive to you. I'm not, but I understand why it would be. You would be like, oh, well, it's pretty offensive. So, but I do feel like it's just taking a generalized view of, that's a very modern idea, that because Catholicism came in and replaced the old religion, it has to be viewed as bad. Anything that's older, or, the folklore or the old beliefs, is going to be shown as a positive, whereas the new religion is going to be shown as a negative. That's a modern idea that we tend to see a lot of, oh, well, you came in and took over and you're bad. So however you want to land on that, that's what they're doing. And the priest is interested in Basha because he sees that she's kind of different. She saves him from a water spirit that's trying to kill him. And he also is very much attractive to the stepmother. Not in she's attracted to him, she's attracted to the fact that he is strong spiritually, and she believes he can keep the demons away from her. She is so afraid. She has lived with this fear for so long. She is so like messed up. Like, you can tell she's damaged. And she will do anything to try and rid herself of the demons that she believes are following her around. So as the town folk and stepmother and the different people begin to turn their backs on the other, their old gods, they slowly, like, things start to go wrong. Calamities and people dying. And it seems like there's this other influence that is, kind of taking over, this evil influence. And so Vasha, being the one who can kind of communicate, she starts trying to appease them, giving her blood to some of the, the creatures that are in her house and feeding them off of her life force to kind of keep them alive, to keep her family safe. So there is this sinister being who's the bear in the story, I believe. And yeah, and I don't think we ever get a name, but he's the bad guy, like he's the evil force. And he, of course, can kind of appear or, when necessary. And he's slowly being able to kind of influence more as the people are turning away from the old gods. He's like able to kind of reemerge as this dark force because they don't have their little, house spirits and little house gods protecting them. So he influences the priest, of course, because the priest has already got his own issues. And he makes the priest believe that he's the god talking to him. And so he gets the priest to kind of do some, sketch things. He's constantly trying to like push him, like, hey, make sure, you need to have the people turn away from that stuff. You need to have them be so devoted to me. And he keeps telling them, like, feed their fear. They need to be afraid. They need to repent. They need to turn away from that other stuff, And so the people are getting more and more afraid. Things are getting increasingly worse. And Vasha is realizing this. She has a nurse that ends up dying that then comes back as like a zombie kind of / vampiric thing. So like these are things that are happening in the story that, although they seem like a big deal, are kind of like, okay, well, yeah, that's happening. And things are kind of getting worse. I will say Vasha is not a very strong character. We know she's strong. We know she doesn't want to get married. And we know that she doesn't want to go to a convent. But as the priest starts to influence her family more and more, he is realizing, and the darker force behind him is realizing, like, she's keeping people safe and keeping this alliance with the, former, gods alive. And so she needs to be removed. So he tries to get her married off. That doesn't work because she's too strong of a woman for this, weak guy who comes to try and take her as his bride. And she proves this by like riding a horse and saving a kid. And I will say at least they give her a reason to be really good at riding a horse. She can communicate with horses. The horses actually teach her. So obviously she's going to be amazing if you're being taught by horses. You're going to know horse language and be able to ride a horse well. So, and this is shown as her like, consistently getting better and better. She actually struggles and then is a really good horse rider. So I think that at least that she wasn't a complete Mary Sue. She was close. But she did have things where it's like, okay, well, it makes sense. She's not just naturally good at everything. So I appreciate that about it. So the marriage doesn't work. So they're like, okay, well, you have only so many options here. It's marriage or a convent. And, that's the way. So they are going to send her to the convent, and she decides that's not what she wants. Obviously, she's a strong female character. We don't know what she wants. Vasha's not really telling us a lot. She's not got a lot of like motivation as a character, except for I don't necessarily want to get married. Like, she was okay with it up until a point, and then she kind of was like, she wasn't feeling it, but she was still gonna do it. Then it was the groom who rejected her. So the convent, though, she's like, no, that's a bridge too far. So the stepmother waits basically until the dad is away, and then is like gonna force her to go to a convent. I'm sure I'm missing little bits and pieces here, but honestly, the story. So she is, decides like, no, there's no way. So she goes out into the woods. The stepmother says, if you don't have to go, if you can go get snowdrops. It's the middle of winter. Snowdrops are a flower. So there's no way that she's gonna be able to do that, but she runs off into the woods to go do it anyway. the priest has been, behind most of this too. He's kind of been influencing the stepmother against her. The stepmother believes that she's saving Vasha's soul if she can get her out to a convent, because she knows she can see the demons just like she can, the stepmother and Vasha. So in the woods, she meets Winter, and he helps her, saves her. She goes and stays with him for a bit, kind of like to recuperate. I will say this is kind of a meh point of the story, because I get that they need to establish him as a character if he's going to show up later, but there's not like anything to their relationship where I'm like, okay, well, is this going to be a romance? Is this going somewhere? I didn't feel anything between them, and I'm not saying it had to be a romance, but they should have done more with him to kind of make us care about him or understand his character or his powers. So he seems to be being kind of restricted by the emergence of this dark force, the bear, who's evil. And so he's got to have Vasha help him. And they know that there's going to be some kind of, you kind of gain the feeling there's going to be some kind of upcoming battle. So the bear has been telling the priest, okay, whatever, don't forget about sending her to the convent. Send Vasha to me. I can get this, ultimate power. And at this point, the priest realizes that this is not God he's talking to, it's some evil spirit, but he's so like, I just want to be rid of this. I want you out of my mind. So he tells the bear, the evil guy, I'll send Vasha to you. But obviously that doesn't work. Vasha runs away. So the evil spirit guy realizes Vasha is not the only one who can see. He needs someone who can see. That's the most power like he can get. He has that person, has their life force basically. So the stepmother can also see. And the priest tricks her. She trusts him completely. She is, he's like been the person she admires the most. She believes that he's working for God, obviously, and she follows him into the woods. And here's where the story just doesn't work for me. So I know that some people will say that the stepmother was evil, that she was, representing, the old way and all this. But that's just not it. The stepmother had no choice in anything she did. The stepmother is a very tragic character, in my opinion. She was never given the choice. Vasha can say, oh, I have the power. I'm not gonna get married. I'm not gonna do this. The stepmother was as part of the royal family. She was never given a choice. It was this or death, always. She has not had any kind of agency in her own life. Also, she truly believes in her very being that she is seeing demons. She is scared out of her mind most of her life. She lives in constant fear. And at the end of towards the end of this book, as the battle goes on, the stepmother is killed. And it's basically she just, we see her kind of get slashed or whatever, and she dies. And I feel like they left something out of this book that could have changed it for me. Because Vasha should have gone to the stepmother and said, I'm so sorry. Like, I know what you were seeing. Like, I wish I could have helped you. Like, you didn't need to be afraid. Because this whole thing that Vasha doesn't see that her stepmother is just like her, except for without options, without any choices, without anything to make her life better. And Vasha, of course, doesn't fear what she's seen because she knows what they are. She grew up with them. She has always lived with the old ways, with the old traditions, with the old household spirits. And so her kind of just like throwing it off like, oh, well, too bad. My stepmother, embraced the new way. Even though that would have been the only way she would have known growing up as she did, completely outside of like a village and, outside of the traditional, structure. So it's like the author just kind of goes, well, this one is good because she's good. And this one is bad because we need a bad guy. And I didn't like that at all. It totally ruined the story for me. I felt like it was so not... I feel like the author really wants this to be a girl boss feminine story, but this is where this usually breaks down, is that these type of stories always, there's no sisterhood. There's no, we care about each other. Like, I wish Vasha would have saved her stepmother and said like, no, I'm so sorry you've lived in fear. I see this. And instead, the stepmother became this antagonistic figure in her life of like, oh, well, she's telling me what to do. And she's, she doesn't understand the old ways. And she's this. And it's like, of course she doesn't. but we can totally see why she wouldn't, why she's afraid, why she has this. And like the stepmother really believed she was saving Vasha. Like she didn't like her necessarily, but that's not, I mean, she lived with her all this time. She really believed what the priest was telling her. Like she's going off of a sincere belief that like Vasha is demon possessed. That's where it just didn't work for me. I don't like that aspect of the story. Also at the end, the dad comes back in the final battle and kind of sacrifices himself. Like I said, this is all spoilers. And I didn't feel anything. The dad isn't a great character. In all honesty, he was pretty terrible. He was going to marry her off to some guy who was basically trash. He was going to send her to a convent. Like this, turning it around at the end, we need this, self-sacrifice father figure. Okay. So I feel like this book chose its villains very, to fit its own purpose, but they didn't do a good job of making them villains, and they chose their heroes very like, oh, well, we need this to happen, so this guy's the hero. Vasha, basically, they overcome, obviously, the bear, the evil spirit, and then the dad dies. We wrap up the story, the stepmother's dead, and then, going on from there. I think the priest just ends up, I'm sure he'll show up later, but like getting, ousted and, go back from whence you came kind of a thing. And she threatens him with Winter. That's what happens at the end. Yeah, her and Winter go in kind of like, listen up. So that's, my main issue. I feel like you can have weak characters, which this does. You can have paper thin, like, okay, well, this is because you have like the bad priest, the fear-mongering, fire and brimstone priest character. You have the evil stepmother. You have the pure, innocent, girl who's so powerful and strong, and she can see everything so clearly, and she can communicate with the spirits, and everybody really flocks to her because she's this just like wonderful light to them. Okay. She was very meh as a character. I didn't dislike her. I just didn't care about her. I didn't feel much for her at all. But I do think that this story really, no. The killing of the stepmother at the end just felt like really ridiculous. And I think it's because it's always women against women. Like, I'm sorry, but that's not, like you have a feminist, girl boss story. And then it's like, yeah, but the evil stepmother who, she's the bad guy. And I'm like, no, why? Why was she the bad guy? She didn't do anything. She was just as much a victim as Vasha was, if not more so. Because she actually had to follow through with her marriage and, have kids with this person she didn't want to be with. This is very much said, not graphically, in the story, that she has no interest in being intimate with him, that she hates this, she wanted to be a nun. She wanted to be in the safety of a convent, and she can't. Every, choice in her life is taken away, but she's the villain. And I think that that's kind of why this feminist part of this book breaks down for me. I just don't like it. And I also think trying to turn the dad into a heroic character at the end doesn't work. The dad is, the person who has upheld all this tradition, and in the negative sense of giving Vasha only the two choices. So I understand kind of why they had to kill him. But also Vasha's choices are marriage or convent. And that's her dad telling her. So at the end, yeah, he gives his life for her and her brother, which the brother character was one of the better characters, and he's not in it much. I think this could have also gone the way of a really strong sibling story, because the best parts of the story are those two together, working together. They have a good chemistry. They have a good sibling bond, and I really like them. Both of her and her brother. I don't remember his name. Put it there. But he's not really in it much. But the parts that he was in it were quite enjoyable. I do wish that they would have kind of focused on that and him helping her and those two working together against the darkness. Because Vasha is a flat character. She needs somebody to kind of play off of, and her being the one who can see, whereas him being the one who trusts her and has to kind of go off of, okay, well, you can see, what's happening. You really can, tell the darkness is coming, and I'll help you to fight it. But also he has to kind of rely on her completely. Would have been really interesting. So maybe that'll play out over the next two books that I won't be reading, because this just, no. All right, so let me know in the comments, because this is quite a hyped book. If there's a hyped book that you just can't, that you just don't like. If you are reading anything that you think is good and want to recommend, let me know. And yeah, talk to me in the comments. Tell me how everything is going with your reading this week. And I will hopefully be making another video soon.